If you're feeling like your own children don't respect you anymore, you're not alone. This is one of the most painful experiences a parent can face, and it's happening to more families than ever before. I'm Sarah Martinez, and after 25 years as a family therapist, I've helped thousands of parents rebuild these precious relationships. In my practice, I've seen parents from all walks of life struggle with this same heartbreaking situation, and I want you to know that there is hope today. I want to share 6 proven strategies that can help you regain your children's respect, not through manipulation or force, but through understanding and genuine connection. These aren't quick fixes, but they work when applied with patience and consistency. I've witnessed these transformations countless times, and they can work for you too. Regardless of how strange your relationship has become, you might be experiencing some of these signs that tell you respect has been lost. Your adult children rarely call unless they need something, maybe money, babysitting, or help with some practical matter. When they do visit, conversations feel strained or superficial. You find yourself walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing that might cause them to withdraw even more. Your teenage children dismiss your opinions, roll their eyes when you speak, or seem to tolerate rather than enjoy your company. Perhaps they turn to others for advice instead of coming to you. Their friends, teachers, or even your own siblings become their confidants, while you're left wondering what happened to the close relationship you once had. This hurts deeply because you remember when you were their hero, their go-to person for everything. You were the one they ran to when they were scared, excited, or confused. You've sacrificed so much for them, working extra hours to pay for their activities, missing your own social events to attend their games, staying up late helping with school projects. Now it feels like none of that means anything to them. Maybe you find yourself constantly criticized for things that seem insignificant. The way you load the dishwasher, your political opinions, your choice of clothing, or even how you express affection becomes a source of tension. You might feel like you're being judged for the very qualities that once made you a good parent: your concern for their well-being, your desire to stay connected, your natural instinct to offer guidance. Here's what's important to understand. This shift often isn't personal, and it's rarely permanent. But it does require us to look honestly at what's happening and why. The good news is that respect can be rebuilt, relationships can be healed, and the love that's always been there can find new ways to be expressed and received. Let me share what I've learned from working with families for over 2 decades. Respect is lost gradually, usually through patterns we don't even notice we're creating. It's not usually one big event that damages the relationship. It's the accumulation of small misunderstandings, unmet expectations, and communication breakdowns that happen over months or years. First, the generation gap is wider than ever before. Your children have grown up in a completely different world than you did. Technology has changed not just how they communicate, but how they think, learn, and form relationships. Social expectations around careers, marriage, parenting, and even basic life milestones have shifted dramatically. The path to success that worked for your generation might look completely different for theirs. What worked for your parents in raising you might not work for your children, and that's not a reflection of your failure as a parent. It's simply the reality of living in a rapidly changing world. Second, many of us fall into the trap of leading with advice instead of listening. When our children share problems with us, our instinct is to fix them immediately. We want to spare them the pain we've experienced, so we jump in with solutions before we've fully understood their situation. But adult children, and even teenagers, often need to be heard and validated more than they need solutions. They want to know that their feelings matter, that their struggles are acknowledged, and that they're capable of handling their own lives with our support rather than our direction. Third, we sometimes hold on to parenting styles that worked when they were young, but feel controlling or disrespectful now. The authority-based approach that kept a 10-year-old safe because I said So, or as long as you live under my roof, can make a 25-year-old feel diminished and disrespected. What once was appropriate protection now feels like a lack of trust in their judgment and capabilities. I remember working with Margaret, a 58-year-old mother whose 28-year-old son barely spoke to her anymore. Every conversation they had seemed to turn into an interrogation. She would ask about his finances, his relationship status, his career choices, his health habits, all out of genuine love and concern. But to him, it felt like constant judgment and criticism. He felt like he could never measure up to her expectations, and every interaction left him feeling like a failure rather than a beloved son. Margaret was devastated. She couldn't understand how her care and concern were being received as criticism. She was doing what her own mother had done, staying involved, showing interest, offering guidance. But her son was experiencing it as intrusion and control. Once Margaret learned to step back and ask simply, "How are you doing?" and then really listen to the answer without immediately offering advice or asking follow-up questions, everything began to change. It took time, but eventually her son started sharing more freely because he felt safe to do so without judgment. This brings us to the first strategy for rebuilding respect: mastering the art of listening first. This might sound simple, but it's revolutionary for most parent relationships. When your child shares something with you, whether they're 16 or 46, resist the urge to immediately respond with advice, similar experiences from your own life, or questions that feel like an interrogation. Instead, try responses like these. "That sounds really challenging. How are you feeling about it?" Or "What's been the hardest part of dealing with this?" Or simply, "Tell me more about that." Give them space to fully express themselves before you say anything else. You might be surprised by how much they're willing to share when they feel truly heard, rather than judged or managed. Listen not just to their words, but to their emotions. Sometimes what they're really saying is, "I'm scared," or "I feel overwhelmed," or "I need to know you believe in me." Address those underlying needs rather than just the surface problem they're describing. The second strategy is acknowledging their autonomy. Your children need to know that you see them as capable individuals with their own wisdom and judgment, not as extensions of yourself or projects to be managed. This means respecting their choices, even when you disagree with them or worry about the consequences. You can express concern without being controlling. Instead of saying, "You shouldn't be working so many hours, it's not healthy," try, "I notice you seem stressed lately. Is there anything I can do to support you?" Instead of "You need to break up with that person," try, "I want you to be happy and treated well. How are things going in your relationship?" The difference is subtle but powerful. One approach feels like criticism and control. The other feels like support and trust. When you acknowledge their autonomy, you're saying, "I trust you to make good decisions for your life, and I'm here to support you, not to direct you." This doesn't mean you can never express concerns or offer advice. It means you do so in a way that respects their right to make their own choices and learn from their own experiences. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow them to make mistakes and be there to support them through the consequences rather than trying to prevent every difficulty. The third strategy is sharing your own vulnerabilities appropriately. One of the most surprising discoveries I've made in my practice is that children often respect parents more when they see them as human beings with struggles and imperfections rather than as authorities who have everything figured out. Consider sharing appropriate challenges from your own life, not to burden them or seek their advice on serious issues, but to show that you're still growing and learning too. "I've been struggling with this situation at work, and I realized I need to work on my patience," is much more relatable and respectful than always presenting yourself as having all the answers. This vulnerability creates connection and shows your children that struggle and growth are normal parts of life. It also demonstrates that you don't see yourself as superior to them, but as someone who is also navigating life's challenges. When you share your own learning experiences, you create space for them to share theirs without feeling like they're being judged against an impossible standard. Be careful, though, to share age appropriately and not to burden your children with problems that are too heavy for them to carry. The goal is connection and humanization, not to make them your therapist or confidant for serious adult problems. The fourth strategy is creating new traditions and ways of connecting that fit your children's current lives, rather than trying to force old patterns that no longer work. Many parents cling to traditions from when their children were young, not realizing that these patterns might now feel burdensome or irrelevant to their adult children. Maybe the weekly Sunday dinners that worked when they lived at home don't fit their current schedules, partners, or living situations. Maybe the annual family vacation feels obligatory rather than enjoyable. Instead of insisting on these old patterns, work together to create new ways of connecting that honor where everyone is now in their lives. Ask your children what kinds of activities they'd enjoy doing with you at this stage of their lives. You might discover that your adult daughter would love to try that cooking class together, even though she no longer wants to go shopping like you used to. Maybe your son would enjoy going to a baseball game or having coffee once a month, even though he's too busy for the long family dinners you used to have. The key is flexibility and collaboration. Let go of how you think family connection should look and be open to discovering new ways that work for everyone. Sometimes the best connections happen in unexpected moments. Texting during a TV show you both watch, sharing articles about shared interests, or having brief but meaningful phone calls rather than long visits. The fifth strategy, and perhaps the most difficult for many parents, is learning to apologize sincerely when you make mistakes. This might be the hardest one because it requires admitting that you, as the parent, were wrong. But it's incredibly powerful for rebuilding respect and trust. When you make a mistake, whether it's overstepping boundaries, speaking harshly, misunderstanding a situation, or making assumptions, apologize clearly and without excuse. I realize I was out of line when I criticized your parenting in front of the kids. I was wrong, and I'm sorry is much more effective than I'm sorry. But I was just trying to help, or I'm sorry you took it that way. A genuine apology takes full responsibility without excuses or explanations that diminish your accountability. It acknowledges the impact of your actions on your child and commits to doing better in the future. Your children will remember these moments of humility and courage far longer than they'll remember your lectures or advice. Apologizing also models healthy relationship skills and shows your children that everyone makes mistakes and everyone can grow. It demonstrates that the relationship is more important to you than being right or maintaining your authority. The sixth strategy is focusing on the relationship itself, rather than being right or winning arguments. In many parent-child conflicts, we get so focused on proving our point or being acknowledged as right that we lose sight of what really matters: maintaining a loving, connected relationship with our child. Before engaging in any conflict or difficult conversation, ask yourself, is it more important that I win this argument or that I maintain a loving connection with my child? Often, you'll find that the specific issue you're arguing about is less important than the EO relationship itself. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or never expressing your opinions. It means choosing your battles wisely and approaching conflicts with the goal of understanding and connection rather than winning. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is agree to disagree while affirming your love and respect for your child as a person. Let me share some real success stories to show you how these strategies work in practice. David was a 62-year-old father whose relationship with his 30-year-old daughter had become so strained they only spoke on holidays. And even those conversations were tense and superficial. David had always been a problem solver, and whenever his daughter shared any challenge in her life, he would immediately jump in with advice, suggestions, and sometimes criticism of how she was handling things. Using these strategies, David started really listening when she talked about her career struggles instead of immediately suggesting what she should do. He began asking questions like, how are you feeling about that? And what support would be most helpful right now? Instead of launching into solutions, he also began sharing some of his own challenges at work and in relationships, showing her that he was still figuring things out too, and didn't have all the answers. Within 6 months, she was calling him regularly, not because he was telling her what to do, but because she felt heard, supported, and respected. She actually started asking for his advice because she knew he would listen first and offer suggestions without judgment. Or consider Janet, whose 34-year-old son had stopped visiting because every conversation turned into questions about when he was getting married, having children, buying a house, or changing careers. Janet was worried about his future and wanted to ensure he was making good life choices. But her constant questioning made him feel like he was being evaluated and found lacking. Every time they spoke, Janet learned to focus on his interests and current happiness rather than his future plans. She started asking about his photography hobby, his volunteer work, and his travels. She shared stories from her own life and expressed genuine interest in who he was becoming rather than who she thought he should become. Now he visits regularly and even brings friends to meet his cool mum, who accepts and celebrates him as he is. These changes take time, and I want to be clear about that. Don't expect overnight transformations. Relationships that took months or years to strain will take time to heal, but the investment is absolutely worth it. Every small step toward respect and connection builds on the previous one, creating momentum toward the relationship you want to have. Here's what you can do starting today to begin this process. First, choose one child to focus on initially. Think about your most recent interaction with them. What could you have done differently using these strategies? How could you have listened more and advised less? How could you have shown more respect for their autonomy? Second, reach out with a simple, no-agenda message. Send a text or make a call that says simply, I was thinking about you and wondering how you're doing. Then listen to their response without trying to fix anything, offer advice, or turn the conversation toward your own concerns. Just be present with whatever they share. Third, identify one pattern you want to change. Maybe it's giving unsolicited advice, asking too many personal questions, bringing up sensitive topics, or making comparisons to other family members or their friends. Commit to changing this one specific behavior for the next week and notice how your interactions change. Remember, respect isn't demanded or commanded. It's earned through consistent loving actions that show you value your children as the unique individuals they are. When you demonstrate respect for them, you create the conditions for them to respect you in return. The beautiful truth is that your children want to respect you. They want to have a good relationship with you. The love is still there, even when it feels hidden or complicated. Sometimes they just need to see that you respect them first, that you value their thoughts, feelings, and choices, even when they're different from what you would choose. This journey of rebuilding respect is really a journey of rebuilding relationship itself. It requires courage to let go of old patterns, humility to admit when we've been wrong, and wisdom to see our children as they truly are rather than as we wish they were or think they should be. If this message has resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your experiences. What has worked in your family? What challenges are you facing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another parent needs to hear today. Next week, I'll be sharing specific conversation starters and phrases that can help you reconnect with an adult child who's been distant or difficult to reach. I'll give you the exact words to use to rebuild bridges and create new opportunities for connection. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Remember, it's never too late to improve your relationship with your children. The love has always been there. Sometimes it just needs new ways to be expressed and received. Your willingness to grow and change, to see your children with fresh eyes and approach them with renewed respect, is the first step toward the relationship you both want to have. This information is based on general principles of healthy family relationships and my professional experience as a licensed family therapist. If you're dealing with serious family conflicts, abuse, or mental health concerns, please consider working with a qualified family therapist or counselor who can provide personalized guidance for your specific situation.